I want to say a special thank you to Mitchell and Margo Blutt for sponsoring this program, and to Howie Lipson for helping us get Jason to come. So
that's the hard part.
And then like I said, he needs no introduction. I'm going to turn it over to Anthony DeCurtis, who's going to do his magic.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And thank you all for coming. And Jason, thanks so much for coming down, man. We, we'll cover a lot of what I've got to say about Jason in the course of our conversation. But I should say, as all of you, since you're here, likely know, the level of writing that Jason has been doing is really quite extraordinary. I mean, he's really distinguished himself as just among, I think, the greatest songwriters in America, for the last 10 years or so. So it's such a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak to him and, discuss his work and, hear him play a song or two and answer some questions. And so thank you all for coming. And Jason,
thank you. Thanks for having me here.
By all means.
Yeah. It's an honor to sit down and talk with you. I talk with a lot of people who don't know anything about music or writing, so it's good to sit with somebody who knows everything about those things.
It's nice to have somebody come in with low expectations. I do my best when that's the case.
But thank you. The hardest part of these is always like at the first, when I have to like sit and figure out what face to make when the person is saying nice things about me. But thank you.
Well, you got through that well. Right?
Thank you very much. I tried to look concerned.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not endorsing this, but I get it.
This is not an endorsement. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Sorry I'm a little late. That was probably my fault somehow. Or an air traffic controller that's not getting paid, probably. But shall I play a song first?
Oh, please.
And then we'll tear it apart.
And then we'll dive in.
So I figured I would do this one first for people who had never heard any of my songs. This one may be the best one, so I'll just go ahead and knock it out. Not the long flowing dress that you're in, or the light coming off of your skin, the fragile heart you've protected for so long, or the mercy in your sense of right and wrong. It's not your hands searching slow in the dark, or your nails leaving love's watermark. It's not the way you talk me off the roof, your questions like directions to the truth. It's knowing that this can't go on forever. Likely one of us will have to spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 years together, but one day I'll be gone, or one day you'll be gone. If we were vampires and death was a joke, we'd go out on the sidewalk and smoke, and laugh at all the lovers and their plans. I wouldn't feel the need to hold your hand, and maybe time running out is a gift. I'll work hard till the end of my shift to give you every second I can find, and hope it isn't me who's left behind, knowing that this can't go on forever. It's likely one of us will have to spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 years together, one day I'll be gone, or one day you'll be gone. Knowing that this can't go on forever, likely one of us will have to spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 years together, but one day I'll be gone, one day you'll be gone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. That was great, man. I just went through my version of what you just described, sitting here, and it's like, oh, I'm not just sitting next to Jason Isbell while he, performs a great song. Like, I'm thinking deep thoughts and pondering,
Yes.
the significance of this.
I never noticed that word. Yeah, just make that face.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
A lovely choice.
Yeah, you want to make a face that says, I know this song, but I'm learning something new about it right now.
Completely.
In Nashville, we do this thing in the round at the Bluebird Cafe where songwriters sit, and each songwriter will play a song and go in a circle. And sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do is figure out what to do with your face when one of the other songwriters in the circle is singing their song, and sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it's like they have code like, this song has been very good to me over the years, which means I have a lot of money now. That's why I write shitty songs like this, is because it pays a lot of money.
It's
so
working,
you have to make the face like, I am gathering insight from whatever you're saying about the pickup trucks and the cutoff pant. This is a beautiful, I never thought of this song that way. Anyway, sorry, digress.
No, one of the interesting things about those kind of, sort of roundtable songwriter things was, I remember I was at one in New York one time. They used to do them at the Bottom Line from time to time, and I won't say who the other songwriters were, but one of them was Barrett Strong, one of the great Motown songwriters, and every one of the other songwriters, would play a song and just, give you like this heartfelt, because I was, upset and there was a breakup and I was, this and that, and there was a terrible problem, and I wrote the song, and the song would be pretty good. And then Barrett's, Strong would go, well, the Temptations' last song had only gone to number 3. So there was a sense in which, we really needed to do something to get them back to number 1. So I sat down and wrote this one, and he would play I Wish It Would Rain.
Yeah.
Go like, God, like, not only is that more poetic, but like it also is a number 1 hit.
Yeah.
Like, it was quite a remarkable experience. Well, let me ask you, since you chose to play that song, how do you evaluate your own work? How do you, when you just say, that's one of my best ones, and I'm interested also in just choosing that kind of conceit of the vampire and that, because the first time I saw that song title, I thought, that's kind of clever, but like, and then when I heard the actual song and how emotional it is, I got it, but that doesn't seem to me to be like an obvious choice.
No, to speak to what you're saying about the song title, we had the same issue in the studio when we were recording the song. Dave Cobb was producing the record, and every time we would suggest that song, he would change the subject and go on to something else, because I think he was expecting like, the Monster Mash, like some sort of Halloween number. It's hard to write a good Halloween song. It's the hardest holiday to capture emotionally.
Now we know what you're secretly working on.
You're damn right, yeah. Anything I've not heard before, and that's it. The Halloween song's the only thing that nobody's done well. But, that I think you have to know, at least within your own material. What you don't know is how the bulk of your own work measures up against the canon. That, you don't get to know that. That's not, you have to go into it deciding, I'm not going to know if I'm any good or not.
Also, caring about it too much has to be stifling.
It will kill you. Yes, it will drive you completely insane. It'll freeze you up. I don't believe in what people call writer's block. I just think it's a block from I call it liker's block, because I think you're not able to enjoy anything that you're doing, and you don't think it's any good. Doesn't mean that you can't write. It just means you can't write anything that you don't think is shit, And if you just keep writing, it eventually goes away like everything else. But I think you have to give up on the idea that you're ever going to know if you're any good or not, And then you have to also keep an awareness of what of your material is your best. Everybody needs to have, whether they're writing, poems or stories or songs or books or whatever, you need to have a St. Peter set, I call it, which is like, play 2 songs, read me 2 poems. That's going to determine whether you get in or not. And I would put that in my St. Peter set, because it does catch you off guard. You wouldn't think. And also because the first, and this is probably incredibly vain, but I'm a songwriter. There's no more vain person on the planet. But the first 4 or 5 times I tried to sing this, I couldn't get through it. Like singing it to my wife, I could not. I had to stop, leave the room, come back and try again. So that's how because I was trying everything. I was thinking about baseball and grandma and everything else, and it's still I had no control over my own emotions when I was singing that song. So I feel like the juxtaposition between the title being something that doesn't lend itself to that lends itself to wit rather than insight, and the song having no wit whatsoever other than insight, makes it something that almost goes to the level of allegory in songwriting. And that, I think, for me, is kind of the goal. You want a song that's about one thing, but about something else, and also about something else, and also about something else,
Did the vampire image occur to you first, or did the song, the kind of idea of, long-lasting love and having a partner, and one person is going to go before the other, were you working with that and then came up with the vampire idea, or did the vampire idea present itself as you were working?
I almost always go chronologically. So the way I'm singing it is normally the way it occurred to me. Not always. Usually that happens until you get past the first chorus, and then when you're repeating the chorus. But with this one, I started out thinking about a song that I hated, and what was wrong with that song. It wasn't one of mine. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but a song. It's not. Trust me, there's plenty of these. But it was a song that was talking. It was somebody singing to his or her partner and talking about the things that he or she liked about him or her, and
You're doing good with the pronouns.
Thank you.
That's a big here on campus.
Thank you. I think I should just skip them all together and just go plural from now on. So I'm going to do that.
Exactly.
So they wrote a shitty song about them, and I was thinking, why does this song not work? And I just literally started with, it's not what you are saying that it is. The reason that you love this person is not what she's wearing, or that she loves you in return, or that she's helped you this many times, or that none of these things are the reason. It's not the sexy time reasons. It's none of that. None of that shit is really the reason you love this person, is because you have a very limited time and you need to love somebody, and you need to hurry the fuck up and do it. And by the time I got to the chorus, I realized, well, who wouldn't have to hurry the fuck up and do it? And then I got the chorus.
There you go. That's fantastic. One of the things that always strikes me about your songs is the level of precision in your writing, and that's hard to do. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your process, like as you edit yourself, as you work on things. What are the kinds of it might be hard to generalize, but what are the types of edits that you make? As you're working toward bringing the song home, where does it go? Like, what are the changes that you're likely to make to it? Or when something is not working for you, what's not working?
I think it's like fixing a car. Like, well, what kind of sounds is it making? It's obvious if it's not starting and it's going tick, 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 it's probably the battery. If it's not the battery, it's the alternator, And I have, like, initially, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there were things that I was more conscious of, like, are these rhymes too obvious? Are there cliches? Is this close to what I mean, or is this exactly what I mean? And over time, those things become, sort of second nature and almost like muscle memory, where you just, as you're working, you're asking yourself those questions as you go. But still, the editing is everything. That's where the magic really happens. The guy that's sawing the lady in half has practiced that 1,000 times before you see him do it on stage. He didn't just wake up with that ability one day. But one thing that I do a lot is I will ask myself questions like, as opposed to what? If I get stuck, that one helps me a lot. As opposed to what? And that question kind of substitutes for, it helps you find the right detail. Like if you say, I love you, well, as opposed to what? What else could you be doing to me or for me or of me or about me, And then you narrow down your options that way, And it's hard because after editing that way for a lot of years, I got to a point to where I could sort of step back as the creator of a song and listen to the song, as I'm playing it, and that became invaluable, and that didn't really happen until right about the time when I got sober and really started focusing on my work and staying in the chair all day. And I don't know if those were related or if, that perspective came about because of the focus or because of the time or because of the sobriety or what. But for some reason, there was just one kind of light bulb moment for me where I thought, I can hear this as if I didn't make it, And when that happened, it was off to the races.
That's incredible. Yeah.
It was like, oh shit, I can fix this without having an emotional connection to it. And that took a long time. I mean, I wrote a lot of what I consider to be really good songs with nowhere near that sort of awareness, just sort of blindly stabbing. But then one day it was like, I can listen to this and determine, what works and what doesn't. Then knock on wood, that doesn't just go away as quickly as it came. But I think with enough practice and enough focus and, once you really get into solving the puzzles and you get all the rewards out of that feeling that you get when you find the right number of syllables and the right rhyme to make it sound natural, then the card just sort of fixes itself.
Can you talk about when you first got interested in words? Obviously, there was a lot of music around your family and, songs, obviously. But at what point did the idea of writing or, expressing, the kind of verbal aspect of what a song is or just any other kind of writing even, at what point did that make an impression on you?
My mom had me reading early, and she read to me a lot, and would give me books to read. I think Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls was the first book that I ever read. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I remember musically, I didn't put the two things together until I was 10 or 11, and because I started playing the guitar around 6 or 7 years old with my grandfather and my uncle, my dad's brother, who played and would spend time with me and teach me chords and stuff like that. And I took to that really quickly, and I really loved that enough to where I never felt like I had to practice. I just wanted to do it all the time. When I didn't have something else I had to do, like still, I could play the guitar if there's nothing else I have to be doing. But I realized that the two could coexist around 10 or 11 years old. And I had gone back and found blues music listening to like Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and guitar heroes from the 70s and the 60s, and I'd gone back to find who they had listened to. And then something lyrically hit me in blues music that just sort of flattened me, and everything about it. I mean, the reality of it all. And I thought, oh, these people are not just singing and playing at the same time. They're making one thing,
Right.
And then I started imitating that and trying to write lyrics of my own, probably around 11 or 12.
Do you write lyrics first, or do you like start with a melody, or how does your songwriting typically go?
Purple. I stole that answer from Nico Muley, who writes operas, and somebody asked him how long it takes to write an opera, and he said purple, and then he walked away. It's different all the time. Sometimes I'll just sit and I'll start playing the guitar, and then a chord progression will happen that I think is cool, and I'll repeat it over and over and over and over and over until some words start coming. And then sometimes I don't have a guitar, so I'm sitting somewhere and I think of a phrase, and usually a melody will come with that phrase or immediately thereafter, and I'll sing it into my phone. Used to, I would call somebody else's cell phone and leave a voicemail, so I could save it. Or I would borrow, if I was in a van when we were touring in the early days, I would borrow somebody's cell phone and call mine and not answer it, obviously, and leave a message with myself singing, and then I would get back and check it, and it would be like, but now with the voice memo revolution, everything has changed, as long as you don't lose your phone.
Could you talk a bit about, you mentioned obviously some musicians, could you talk about some writers that you read that, whose work made an impression on you just in terms of their use of language and, suggesting some of the possibilities of things that you might be able to do?
Let's see. There were things that we had to read in school, obviously, and all those are great, and we all have to read them, and good job getting through Finnegan's Wake and all that. But, Peter Matheson, Dennis Johnson, Jennifer Egan, George Saunders, who has become a friend of mine, and is like talking to George is like, opening the door of the spaceship. Without putting a helmet on, his brain is just a terrifying alien thing, But the things I've had probably the most visceral attachment to as an adult would be like Matheson. Jennifer Egan gave me a panic attack one time, and I've never had one before or since, but I was reading.
She's teaching here. Is
she?
Yeah.
Well,
she's
don't tell her.
No, we should call her up and get her over here.
Come here. I need to ask you something. That Visit from the Goon Squad, that book, I was reading it on an airplane, and it was something about it just hit so close to home for me because, it's everybody, they're all connected through the music business, and just the types that she built and the detail that she went into with that just... like, it really freaked me out really bad, which is a beautiful thing.
There's that whole section on pauses in songs that's just incredible.
Yeah, how do you know that much about every aspect of what somebody else is doing? It seems unresearchable to me. It seems like there's no way you're ever going to find out. Like, you can make a map. You know what I mean? Like, if you go to enough places and write enough shit down, you're going to have an awesome map. But if you try to go write about the music business and musicians and songwriters and creative people, I would think it would just be too complicated for even a team of people to undertake. I think it'd be easier to make up a fantasy world than to hit the nail on the head like she did with that book, It's amazing. It's like she must have a lot of all the things that, make your brain fire.
Yeah, I've actually taught that book, and it's so I've read it a few times, and God, it kills me every time.
Yeah.
What obviously this is a subject that's come up a lot, and maybe it can't come up too much these days, but the kind of political nature of songwriting, that is a tricky business. You don't, in a sense, want your song to just be kind of pegged to a specific event or time or place or whatever. On the other hand, you want to be specific enough to make a difference and make an impact. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, some of the political songs and songwriters that, that you admire and that have done things that have inspired you, and about that type of writing that you've done yourself, and how you've, what's driving that.
Yeah, I think if you are worried about your song being too closely connected to a specific period of time, then you need to find a friend who will call you on your bullshit pretty quickly, because you've become a megalomaniac. If anybody out there gives a shit, you should be pretty happy with that, to tell you the truth, because there's a lot of noise, man. There's a lot of noise. But, I saw recently, it's a couple years ago, I guess, but at this little place called the Station Inn in Nashville, John Prine played his debut album in its entirety. And the self-titled, he had to buy a copy of the record on eBay, and he had to pay like $85 for it to set it on his mic stand in front of him. But he played the whole thing all the way through, and I've known John for quite a few years, and he's a hero and just really a great human being. And I think that first record is probably as solid as any singer-songwriter record anybody has ever made, just from start to finish, And he was 21, 22 when he wrote those songs, delivering mail in Chicago and writing songs in his head, walking through the snow. And he said he never sat on a bale of hay before that photo shoot. So he's on the cover sitting on a bale of hay like a hillbilly. He was the fucking mailman in Chicago.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But when he got to Sam Stone, he said, I thought nobody was going to care about this song. At most for a few months, this song would make a little ripple, and then the war would be over. And nobody would ever listen to Sam Stone again. And he was saying this on stage when he was playing it. And he said it's a double-edged sword, because obviously as a songwriter, it feels nice for your work to be appreciated. But the things that you're talking about in a song like that, for those problems to be no closer to solved than they were in 1971, says something that's bigger and much more important than some songwriter in his songs, and John understands that as well as anybody does. But there are a lot of different kinds of songwriters. I like to think of myself as the kind that John is, or the kind that Joni Mitchell is, or the kind that my wife is, where I'm trying to communicate and connect first and foremost. I'm not aiming at a target. I'm not trying to sell something. I'm trying to make something. And I hope it sells, because it's nice to have guitars that stay in tune and, boots that don't have holes in them. But I'm not going to change the thing that I'm making in order to sell it. And, I don't think less of somebody who does that. I just feel like that's a different job. If I had that job, I would keep my mouth shut a lot about political things if I was trying to sell songs to people. But I'm not. I'm trying to write songs for people.
One of the things, you mentioned John Prine in an interview, and I saw, thinking about your work, it's so distinctive, and I was thinking, like, oh, who's like this? Who's like this? And then when you brought up John Prine, I just thought, exactly, like it seemed to me like there were a lot of, I say this not to flatter you, by the way, just because, it seemed true to me that there was a lot of similarities between what he's done and what you were doing. There's the way that his language and yours, can just flow. I mean, you're not standing on your head to turn a phrase, although there are very nice phrases. It's not kind of overwritten.
It's not songwriterly.
Yeah,
yeah, that's the
right.
word that you like to use on us. That's too songwriterly.
That's great.
Well, you're being too critical.
There you go. But there's that level of naturalness to the speech is it's the old game. It sounds so easy because so much work went into it.
Right. Yeah.
And I wonder if you could talk about that aspect of as you're looking at your songs or working on a song, when you think about getting that sort of conversational quality or getting that, sort of natural quality to the speech, how does, how do you do it? I guess is the question.
It is a lot of work. I think I go into it with the idea that the audience is a stranger, and I don't have the opportunity to say, here's who I am, here's what I know, here's what I'm asking you or of you. You know what I mean? I walk up and start singing this song to you, and I know nothing about you. I don't even know what you look like, So the simplest language becomes the most poetic in that situation because, I don't know anything about you. I don't know. All I know is that you speak English. I'm just assuming that because I can't write in any other language, So I think it for me to feel like I am communicating with a bunch of strangers, I have to use conversational language. Now, that doesn't mean I'm dumbing it down. It's the opposite of dumbing it down.
That's right.
It's so much more difficult to express complex ideas in conversational language, and you want it to wind up overheard. That's the goal, in that kind of a song. You want it to be, oh, this sounds like an accident. How did the guy at the bar next to me just say that? You want it to sound like you picked up the right rock, rather than you conjured something out of the air, because when it looks like you just found it, then you've managed to hide all of your work. You've managed to erase all of the scribbles and completely. And that, to me, I think, for those reasons, which were probably unconscious on my part, I was drawn to that early on. But, my mom was playing me John Prine and John Hyatt and James Taylor and those kind of things when I was little, when I was really little, before I made any kind of music at all, when I was like a baby, and all the way up. So I knew of those songs. And then when that time came Son House didn't write songwriterly songs.
Right.
He was writing songs that were very, very lyrically simple, but incredibly moving, like to a point to where nobody's gotten back there yet, and Al Bell in Memphis or Smokey Robinson in Detroit, those songs weren't, there's no like sleight of hand involved in the rhymes there. They're not lyrically dazzling, melodically. Now that's a different thing. Now you can dance all you want with a melody as long as it's, does what it's supposed to do, but lyrically you're talking to people that you don't know, and so you need to be able to communicate your heart to them, so there's no presumption, because it's presumptuous to start talking to somebody you've never met in some kind of fucking conflated asshole language that
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, if James Joyce comes up and starts talking to you, you're gonna be like, "Fuck this dude, man." I get it. You know a lot of big stupid words.
Maybe we could hear another song.
Yeah,
you feel like playing
I'll do
one?
another song. I'll do another song before I insult anybody else. Any more dead Irishmen? Let's see. Oh, I know what I'll do. Let's see. This one I wrote a long time ago. It was on an album called Here We Rest. It was before Southeastern. Southeastern was the first album I ever really had a whole lot of success with. But this song I'm still proud of, and you know, the albums, Southeastern was like 6 years ago or so, and that was the point where my career took off and things started going really well, and the albums were a lot better. That one and the two that followed it were much more consistent, but there were high points on the records before that I still go back to, and I'm like, you know, I could get there in those days. I just didn't stay there very long. Well, I moved into this room, if you could call it that, a week ago. I never do what I'm supposed to do, hardly even know my name anymore. When no one calls it out, it kind of vanishes away. And I can't get to sleep at night, the parking lot's so loud and bright. The AC hasn't worked in 20 years, probably never made a single person cold. But I can't say the same for me, I've done it many times. Somebody take me home through those Alabama pines. You can't drive through Talladega on that weekend in October. Just head up north to Jacksonville, cut around and over, watch your speed in Bowling Springs. 'Cause they ain't got a thing to do, they'll get you every time. Somebody take me home through those Alabama pines. Somebody take me home through those Alabama pines. And if we pass through on a Sunday, better make a stop at Wayne's. It's the only open liquor store north, and I can't stand the pain of being by myself without a little help on a Sunday afternoon. And I needed that damn woman like a dream needs gasoline. But I tried to be some ancient kind of man, one that's never seen the beauty in the world. Then I tried to chase it down and make the whole thing mine. Now somebody take me home through those Alabama pines. Somebody take me home through those Alabama pines. I've been stuck here in this town, if you could call it that, a year or two. I never do what I'm supposed to do. I don't even need a name anymore. When no one calls it out, it kind of vanishes away. And no one gives a damn about the things I give a damn about, the liberties that we can do without. They seem to disappear like ghosts in the air. We don't even care, truly vanishes away. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I remember hearing you talk about that song one time, and you were describing looking at a map and trying to make sure that you got all the places right, you know, and songs that just kind of move on the basis of all of those place names are in a funny way are so evocative, and clearly it's a world that well. Could you talk a bit about about writing that one?
Yeah, it the place name thing, it works, but it's also like every time you do it, like there's not an unlimited amount of times that you can do the city names and place names. You know what I mean? Like you can't just every song can't have the name of a damn town in it because it's too easy. It's too easy. And if you're gonna do that, you need to get it right. It needs to be a place that you know and a place that you're familiar with. And if you're going to tell somebody how to go from point A to point B, you got to check and you got to make sure that everything lines up, because people value their homes and their hometowns. And sometimes they value their hometowns more once they've been away from them for 20 or 30 years. So you go play these songs for people and they hear this song and say, he mentioned Boiling Springs, They hoot and they hold their drink up. Woo! When they lived in Boiling Springs, they hated Boiling Springs. Yeah, it was the worst, But now that they're in Chicago, they're like, I'm from there, everybody. It's the first time they ever say, I'm from Boiling Springs, Alabama, But it's writing that song I was at a very low point in my life. I was very unhappy and very lonely and trying to get back to the person that I was, and sometimes you don't realize the metaphor or the allegory of what you're writing until it's done. Sometimes you think you're writing about one thing, and in fact you're not. You're writing about something completely different, and that's to me that's just as fortunate as the random song that happens to write itself, the one where you're just hanging on to the pen. That's great, and I love that, but I don't mind sitting there for a few days and doing the work. What I really like is when I get to the end of one and it's more than I meant for it to be.
Perfect, yeah.
Because then there's something unconscious at work there that's helping me sort through something, and also that's helping me get the details right so other people know what I'm talking about. Even
and those resonances are so exciting to experience, as a writer.
Yeah, that's really fun. That's like, man, I just stumbled up on my feelings. I'll be damned. I was trying to write about something completely different.
I guess there's something to this songwriting thing.
Yeah. Or writing in general. I think that happens. If you write enough, and stay in the chair for long enough, those things they start happening to you. Unless you're just really bad at it, and then hopefully somebody will help you find another path.
More productive route to travel, yes.
That's when you need good friends.
This process of just kind of creating something that that wasn't there before is a struggle. And one of the things that you have written about and spoken about a lot is your sobriety. You mentioned it here, and that process, has become kind of, along with changing your life and making so many other great things possible, has become a kind of great subject for you. You've written about it very well and compellingly, and, even a little, it's a little scary sometimes. I wonder if you could, just kind of talk about, when you sit down to address an issue like that in a song, like how do you negotiate that just emotionally?
You had to be able to control your focus enough to focus on detail. The smaller your job is at that moment, the less you're going to talk yourself out of it. So it's like, I don't sit down thinking I'm going to write a song about being sober or about what my life used to be like or about anything really. I just sit down and think I'm going to make characters and I'm going to follow them around. First I got to make them correctly. I have to make them, anatomically correct, for lack of a better term. They have to do things that people would do, and then I'm going to follow them around and see what they want to show me. And the smaller my task has gotten, the better my songs have gotten, if that makes any sense. Like,
Sure.
You know, years ago I would think I want to write a song about my dad, so I would sit down and start writing a song about my dad. Now, my dad says something funny, I sit down and start singing that over and over, and I don't worry about what's going to happen next, because that'll happen, you know. That way, every line is a different job, you know. Every word is a different job. And it really seems like that would be so tedious, but it's the opposite. Tedium is trying to, you know, I have the beginning of my story and I have the end of my story. Now I got to figure out how to get there. That, to me, is not, I'm sure there are some people who are great at that, but I can't handle that. That drives me insane. What I would rather do is just start talking about the truth and then tell the truth as many times in a row as I possibly can, you know. And in a practical way, you know, I think the structure of a song works well for me in that regard, because there are verses, there are choruses, you know, refrains, but the majority of the music, like, it's enough, like the chorus is enough of a repeat, of a rooting for me, where I can like talk about one thing, and then, oh, let's remind everybody what song this is by singing the chorus. Let's talk about something else. Oh, remember it was this song that I was doing, you know. And then let's talk about something else. And I don't ever get too far off the path the first time through, you know. I can write a whole song in an hour, no problem. I could do it right now. Now, it wouldn't be good until a week from now, you know. But because of the structure of a song, I couldn't do a whole short story in an hour or a day. It would probably take me a month, you know. But for a song, there's enough there that I know where my points are to sit down and take a breather, and I can always rely on chords and musical structure. Like my wife, she writes songs also, but she's a fiddle player first, and so. The violin play. She says it's a violin when you're selling it, and a fiddle when you're buying it. But she, knowing how to play a lead instrument, she doesn't have the changes to rely on in the same way. So, you know, sometimes she'll be writing in one part of the house, and I'll hear her or she'll text me, I need a chord, you know. And I'll go in, and she'll be trying to go from here to here, and I'll have to say, oh, well, let's try that or that or that, you know. But for me, I can rely on chordal changes and melody and stuff to kind of show me where to go next, you know. And I think I've gotten off of the subject of the question you asked me. I just try to be honest, and when I start getting scared, I go for it even deeper, like toward the thing that's scaring me. You know, I'm thinking this is scary. I'm not going to look too cool by the end of this song. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep hitting that scary button. You know, because that's better than somebody who runs from it.
Absolutely. I mean, it. You know, it's worked for you. I mean, they. You know, I was thinking about like songs that she sang in the shower, you know, just some of the lines in there, you know, just about, you know, the character talking about being with himself. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it's compelling stuff, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to write, and it, you know, sometimes it's not that easy to listen to, you know. Yeah,
sometimes it's not easy to sing, either. And you know, like during the course of the set, you try to put yourself in a place where you were when you wrote the songs, but if you did that for every song all night, you would have like the emotional range of a toddler. You know, it would just be like, like, you know, and you would go insane. So there has to be like a certain detachment when you're singing. And people say they're sad songs, and that's the thing. I don't mind. I don't care if people call me a country singer or an Americana singer or an asshole. I just saying these songs are so sad. That really puts me out. That causes me to lose faith in humanity. You know, that's the one thing about the music that I make that does it. When somebody says that's just sad bastard music, I'm like, yeah. What other kind of bastard is there? Like,
right, exactly. And, you know, it's my job to cheer you up. Yeah, right. There is something that's actually cheering about engaging. Like something that deep, like, you know, there's, like, you have an experience. That's the reward, not like, you're not telling jokes.
Trying to share, right.
Although, as you say, like there are some of your lines are really, really funny.
Sometimes if you work hard, you can get funny stuff in the middle of all those songs. But like the people who are paid just to make you laugh are the most fucked up people of all. Like the only people crazier than musicians are stand-up comedians. They're insane. All of them are nuts. But like, the experience of a day, if you're paying attention, if you have any awareness at all, then you're going to go through all sorts of different emotions. And if you stay away from them in a song, they're not going to feel natural to people. And sometimes people don't want to feel, they don't want to feel the truth when they're listening to a song. And that pop music is there for that. And it's great for that, But yeah, what I'm doing is very, very, it's boutique jams.
Well, let's see if anyone has a question that they would like to ask you or a comment they would like to make.
Yes, sir, in the back.
There we go.
No, don't give him one. I want the upper hand.
This has been wonderful. And so much of this tonight has been about the labor of songwriting. And I'm just really curious if you've had the experience at all, because you talked about putting in the hours, right? Like you're going to have to make that serious face again, but you've gained mastery, right? Because you put in the hours. And I think sometimes about something Flannery O'Connor said about, like, she had to go write every day to see if the angels had come.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have that experience of feeling like the words just came tumbling out for a long section, or like something came to you more as a gift than you had to, like, fight it out?
Yes, most definitely. It's rare, but I have it, and I'm grateful for it. Sometimes it happens, and when it happens that way, the songs tend to be very heavy, and very emotionally sound. And yeah, like I say, I love it when that happens. But muses like to find you busy. Somebody said that same thing, basically. It's like they like to see you working, and it happens more often. It's like there was some, and you may know, I'm sure somebody in here knows, but there was some kind of French painter, and the king commissioned a painting, and, it was like a month went by, and another month went by, and nothing, and the king was like, go to his house, get the painting. I've already paid him. Either get the painting or kill him. So the guy goes to the house, he knocks on the door, and he's like, I'll have it for you tomorrow. Come back tomorrow midday, or whatever French people say. He comes back the next day, and he hands him a painting. And it's a painting that he made overnight, that night, because he knew he was about to die. And it's beautiful. And the king's like, how did you do this work in one day? He's like, no, I did the work in my whole life leading up to when I started making the painting. I think the practice and the openness and the awareness leads you to those times when it feels like you're just hanging on. But yeah, I'll take them whenever they come. That's for sure. Yeah.
Do you have anyone else?
Do you have a question, or are you the mic person? You're the mic person?
So you mentioned the influence that your mother had on your musical development, and how when you heard the blues or certain blues artists anyway, that it kind of flattened you. Was there a point in your life, like a distinct moment, that was pivotal in you deciding that music, for whatever level it was going to go to, needed to be a part of your life for the rest of your life?
I don't remember ever thinking otherwise, really. And I know that makes me very, very lucky, but there was never a decision, what do you want to do with your life, for me? Never. And I consider that the luckiest thing of all the lucky shit that's happened to me, is the fact that from like the first time I picked up a guitar and somebody showed me a chord, I thought, oh, you're going to have to make me stop doing this, And it was always that way. But yeah, I think when I first figured out that I could write a song, like I remember the first song that I wrote, we were doing something in like jazz band in middle school or something, and it was like a Duke Ellington song, and I didn't know if it had lyrics to it or not. Turns out it did, but I didn't know that, so I wrote my own and just folded them up and kept them in my wallet, And I read them to my parents in the car on the way home from school. And my parents were both like, I could see them doing the thing where they look at each other, where they're like a little bit weirded out. Like they were like proud of me, but they were also a little freaked out by me, you know? And that's a weird feeling when you're a kid. But that made me feel like, okay, maybe there's something here for me that's not just going to be for fun, you know? But yeah, it's always been, for me, nothing, you know, no astronaut, no fireman, none of that. It was always just rock and roll. Yeah. Thank you.
We have a...
Ma'am, I believe you were first.
We'll let my husband go next.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you a question about another kind of writing, because I have been a follower on Twitter of yours for a long time. And quite enjoy when you get a little bit political and a little bit provocative.
Okay.
And I'm curious about whether writing in other forms is something that you do as a release, or is it something that you do kind of as a distraction, or is it just a completely different kind of writing at all, and it's something you just do for fun?
It's all kind of, thank you for that. That's a good question. Normally I hate it when people ask me about my tweets. I'm going to get a shirt that says, "Don't ask me about my tweets." But that was a good question. It's all kind of one thing, you know. If I think of something and I'm about to tweet it, and I think it's really good, then I'll be like, wait, maybe I should write that down and not tweet it, you know? Like, so what you're seeing on Twitter is not going on the next album, because, you know, I'm afraid to let that out into the world. But I love that format, because it's kind of like being like the person who can just say something and then walk out of the room. I think the French have a word for that. You know, we don't have it. I can't say it. But, you know, the last thing you say before you leave the party is like, I can pretend like I don't see any of you people and just say one thing and be like, okay, that's it. That's all I have to add. And I'm a smart ass, you know, and so it works really well for me. But mostly that was just for fun at first. But I do think I've actually gotten a lot out of it. Like a lot, yeah. I think so. It's tough though. You gotta have a lot of patience and very thick skin for social media nowadays. You know, because man, it's a minefield. It's a minefield until you realize none of the mines are active, and then it's just a bumpy yard. You know.
Did you want to pass the mic to your spouse?
Sure. As you're writing, do you know, kind of as the song is coming together, whether it's going to end up as, you know, like Vampires, an acoustic song, or become a full band ripper? And if so, you know, could you talk a little bit about the process of taking, you know, the bones of a song that you've done on acoustic and building it up to that full band, or if something's written with the full band, then stripping it down?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of the time, I know, you know, pretty soon after I start writing it what it's gonna want to be, because it's just kind of obvious, you know. That song would sound so weird if it was, like, first of all, if you're singing about vampires, you better not be going, you know. That's just too much. But yeah, usually you can tell, and I try not to fight it. As much as I would love to have like 10 rock songs on every album, that's just not what normally happens. And so I try really hard to let the song be whatever it wants to be. But there have been times when, you know, I'm trying to think, there was a song a couple records ago, Speed Trap Town. That song was, we started it out with the full band, you know, everybody playing like that, you know, like Jayhawks or somebody would have done, Bottle Rockets or somebody, Jason Ringenberg or somebody back in the day when they didn't have a name for all those hillbilly punks, you know. But we started like that, and it just never worked and never worked and never worked. And Cobb was like, you just go play it by yourself on an acoustic guitar. And we built from there, and it should have been that the whole time, you know. And that's one thing that really helped me when I turned over some control, because until I started working with Dave 3 records ago, I had either produced or co-produced everything I'd ever done with the Truckers, solo, all that. And that was like, when I got sober, I was like, okay, I can't control everything. So, you know, I'm gonna have to let some people into my brain, and hold my baby for a minute and help me with this. So, you know, Dave became the producer and really helped me a lot with stuff like that, because if he wasn't around, that song would still be just a mid-tempo, you know, boring as shit. But yeah, you can usually tell pretty quickly. Every once in a while you're wrong, but most of the time you can tell. And what's really fun is when you get like a good verse and a chorus of a rock song. The rest of that day is awesome. You know, you just have to stop yourself from just playing sick riffs and actually try to write the song. You know, lately that's been really hard because I just got a guitar that's like probably the best guitar. Like end of descriptor, like, you know, and it's a ridiculous thing. And there's no way I should have this guitar, but I have it, and it makes me really happy. And it's not a very good guitar to write on for me right now, because I'll start writing a song and then I'll wind up just playing the end of Freebird, you know, for like 45 minutes because it just sounds so good. So it's best to write on one that you're used to. But anyway, there you go. Any more?
We have someone else?
Yes.
Yes, right here.
Right here.
So, I know you wrote Maybe It's Time for a Star Is Born, and I'm not sure if you wrote it for the movie or if it was just a song of yours that you had and you submitted for it, but I think it's this gorgeous piece of music, and it opens the trailer, and it adds so much to the character of Jackson. And I think my question is, if seeing that song telling someone else's story on a screen in a piece of fiction, did it make you discover something new about your songwriting or about your song? Like, how did it feel to just have a song of yours recontextualized in that manner?
Thank you for that. That's a good question, and it was you know, yesterday since yesterday is past and they're not nominating any more people for Oscars, I can tell you the truth. I had a lot of that song written before. And then I went back in and moved some things around and changed some things for the character after talking to Bradley about it, you know. But I thought the song was subversive in a certain way that was sort of at odds with the melody and the arrangement and the type of song it is, you know. And that made me really happy. That made me think of like Chris Christopherson, you know, who obviously was in the most recent, before this remake of A Star Is Born. But Chris is really good at writing these songs that sound like gospel songs, you know. Ray Charles did it best. He would write a song that was a gospel song, but then he would put sexy time words to it, and it was like a totally different. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, what is he doing? This is awesome!" And I feel terrible listening to this. So, like, that song kind of made me think of Christopherson in that way. And then when Bradley needed a song for the character in the movie, I was like, I don't have time for this shit. I don't have a remake of A Star Is Born. Are you kidding me? Like, no, that's a terrible idea. Bradley Cooper, he's never directed a movie before. Nobody's ever heard him sing. No, this is stupid. I have other things to do, like go play the Freebird solo over and over. But luckily, my wife was like, no, this could be good. You should at least read the screenplay and talk to the man, and you know, and I don't know if she did that out of, you know, kindness in her heart for me, or because she thought it would eventually maybe lead to us knowing Bradley Cooper. Either way, it worked out, and I'm glad that she did that. And I won't give her Bradley's phone number. What I do is she writes a note, and I take a picture of it, and I send it to him. That's how they communicate. Because I'm afraid to give her his cell phone number. But no, it really did. The way that character developed throughout the course of that story, and the way that song fit in, was better than I imagined that it would, you know. And when I saw it on the screen, and I saw how, you know, a lot of people made the argument that that movie was rockist. And I don't know. I know you. I know you are probably. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Totally.
But you know, most people don't. And
Yes.
be
Thank
glad. If you
goodness.
don't
Yeah,
know
right,
what
exactly.
raucous means, be happy that you don't, because it's not going to help you knowing that. It's not going to help you. But I saw it as sort of the opposite. I saw it as the changing of the guard in a lot of ways, you know, in gender roles in music. I saw it in stylistically in music, and I saw it in crutch versus the overcoming of your own personal demons. And I think that
Generations.
yeah, and I think the song just kind of slid right into that in a certain way that made me really happy, you know. And he sent me a demo that he made where he was singing the song, and I was getting on a plane, and I got the demo, and I was like, you know what? First of all, I don't think he gives a shit whether I like this or not. But what if it sucks? Like, am I going to be able to, like, call him back and be like, no, Bradley, this is bad. This is awful. I don't want your money. Keep me out of this movie. I thought, I'm just going to wait. And so I got on a plane. I flew for like 4 or 5 hours, like cross country. And then when I got off the plane, I listened to the demo, and I was like, oh, he did a good job. It's really good, because he'd been to a vocal coach, you know, and he worked hard to learn how to sing for this role. And it sounded really as good as or better than a lot of the Nashville country singers of the day. And so I told him that, and he was like, oh, thank God. And it turns out he had been waiting like sweating over it the whole time. He's like, oh my God, the whole movie could collapse. And I didn't realize that until he was doing like a panel interview somewhere, and he told that story from his perspective. He never told me, like, why didn't you tell me this 5 hours ago? You know, what have you been doing, like, for 5 hours, you know? But no,
Playing the solo on Freebird.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I think that speaks to a lot of movie directors would be like, asshole, why didn't you tell me this 5 hours ago? Or they just wouldn't care one way or another. Most of the time they don't care, you know. And when you go see that movie, the instruments are correct. Like the amplifiers are correct. The people playing are really playing. Most of the time they don't give a shit about any of that. And I think all those little details added up to a much better movie than everybody expected. You know, because Bradley gave a shit, you know. But
any chance we could hear you play it?
Yeah, I'll play that song, sure. Yeah, play that song. Let's see here. Ooh, this weather. Oh no. The worst part about the winter time is tuning acoustic guitars. For me, which means I don't have a bad winter at all, really. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. It takes a lot to change a man. Hell, it takes a lot to try. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Nobody knows what waits for the dead. Nobody knows what waits for the dead. Some folks just believe the things they've heard or things they've read. But nobody knows what waits for the dead. And I'm glad I can't go back to where I came from. I'm glad those days are gone and gone for good. If I could take spirits from my past and bring them here, you know I would. You know I would. But nobody speaks to God these days. Nobody speaks to God these days. I like to think He's looking down and laughing at our ways. Nobody speaks to God these days. And when I was a child, they tried to fool me. Said the worldly man was doomed and hell was real. But I've seen hell in Reno and this world's just one big old Catherine wheel spinning still. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. It takes a lot to change your plans and a train to change your mind. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you,
This is
Anthony.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.